Hi there. In this video, I'll be talking about our new system, SCOIR, and how to use it effectively during the college search process to help make things easier and to help you stay more organized. And finally, students, the more you use it now, the more comfortable you're going to feel when you need to use it next year during the college application process. So let's get started. When you first come into SCOIR, it looks something like this. You're going to see some more boxes up here if this is your first time or if you haven't populated into there yet. Basically, students, it's kind of like social media. The more information you put in, the more customized your SCOIR experience is going to be. You'll see colleges that are recommended based on the interests that you designate. Students, I cannot encourage you more to keep an open mind during the college search process. You're going to hear about the same 20 or 25 schools all the time, and I encourage you to expand your search beyond those. Think about the schools that you like and what is it that you like about those schools so much, and then look for schools with similar characteristics. And some of those may be schools that you haven't heard of but really have a fantastic reputation. You've just never heard of it. And that's okay, because there's lots of things we've never heard of. A couple other things I want to show you on the main screen, things to make your life easier. College websites, if you haven't already figured this out, can be tricky to navigate, and sometimes it feels like things require lots of clicks to find them. So if you start favoriting schools here in SCOIR, you'll be able to have quick links over to the college visit sites on particular websites. So you can hop right over to the Temple visit site and you don't have to kind of hunt and peck to find that. That can be very helpful. Also, one of the big complaints about Naviance was that students had, everything was buried and you had to go down in menus. So the good part is when we start doing visits, when you start having application deadlines, everything is like right here in your face. So you can't miss it. Also, surveys, we will have a couple of required surveys that we'll be talking to you about later this year that will be required for students applying to four-year schools. That'll be our student brag sheet and our parent point of view. Our counselors will use the information you provide there to write your counselor letter of recommendation. So the more you give, the more helpful that is. And we'll ask that you try to get that done before you come back in the fall so that we'll be ready to go when you're ready to go. All of the information that you put here in SCOIR gets saved on this one screen, your profile, and you can scroll down or use the links on your left. Be sure to review the information, make sure it's correct, and there are no surprises. Students, go ahead, populate information into these activities areas. Again, it's used by your counselor to write that letter of recommendation. Also, though, if you need a quick resume, right at the top, once your stuff is typed in here, right at the top, you can click export resume, and you'll get a really simple, basic resume. Is it the most, visually pleasing? No, it's not as fancy as you can make in like Canva. But all of the information's there, and you're not going to have to retype it. So you can even move it around and make it look the way you want after that. Also from here, students, you can invite your parents into SCOIR. We'll be doing that as well, but if they're anxious to get their own accounts, you can do that right at the top. And two other things I want to show you here. The drive, this is a collection of frequently used information that we just started to populate in here, but you also have control over your own drive. So if you want to kind of start using it to warehouse all of your information, if you've got spreadsheets you're using, you can link them in here so that you always have good access to it. Students, you might be feeling a little bit hamstrung in your search if you're not sure, what you want to major in or what you want to be when you grow up. And believe me, that's okay. So many students enter college as undecided, but if you're able to get a little bit more direction, that might help you feel like you can move forward. Really recommend taking the time to do the YouScience assessment. I recognize it takes longer than the one in Naviance, but I do feel like the information is good. And also it should not be done all in one sitting. So, take it, do it over a couple of different times. It's only like 5 or 10 minute little brain games. And so you can do a little at a time. And at the end, you're going to get a lot of great information about your strengths. And also you'll be able to view your career matches. And so those are going to be based upon two things: your interests, what you like, and also your aptitudes, what you're good at. And those come into play together to give a bunch of different suggestions. And you can choose by, I don't want to spend a lot of time in college, all the way up to I intend to go to grad school. For each one of these things, you can view related majors, view the related careers, and learn more about each career. So this might give you a little bit more direction if you're feeling super stuck in the search process. Back to the search here, there's two. For the basic search, it groups things by must have, nice to have, and no thanks. Then you can move them around if you want. I definitely recommend don't do too many things up here in the most must have category, especially not too many things within a single little category. The more specific you make it up here, the shorter your list is going to get. And at this point in the junior year, students, you want a list that's longer because you're going to start to whittle it down as you're able to perhaps do in-person visits or take the time to do, online visits as well. I do personally prefer the advanced search, but it's just kind of a personal preference thing because I like this display a little bit better for me. Here you'll see I've got 8 schools, way too small for this point in my college search process. I certainly want more than that. This is like my end goal is I want like, I don't know, 6 or 8 schools maybe on my final college application list. I like to compare schools from here, and as you click compare, it's going to kind of ping them over here into this little bar on the right. You can compare up to 4 at a time if you want. And so you can take a look at them side by side, see how their stats compare, and also especially things like acceptance rate. And this will come into play when you're trying to figure out which schools are probable, which schools are a match, and which schools are a reach for you. And I'll be discussing those more in our next video. You can also look at each one of these schools. There's a ton more information because everybody's kind of got their own page here on SCOIR. So you can go there right from here, viewing the college details, or you can search from the top if you're looking for a specific school. This is where you're going to see a ton of detail about each school, and it's really curated information that comes from the colleges. So some schools are going to have more than others. Some will have a link to a virtual tour right up here. The information on the main page here pertains to all applicants to the university. So this is all students who applied to St. Joe's and what their numbers look like. Remember in that last video, I talked about 3 different areas of fit. So you'll see these things about social and environmental fit. Again, more direct links to the school website. Academic fit, you'll be able to determine which are most popular programs at a school. Are lots of students into business at St. Joe's? Yes, absolutely. Specific majors. Another tip as you're doing searches, don't get so hung up on the specific listing of majors that you see on these sites like this one on SCOIR, on Naviance, on Big Future. Everybody's working from the same standard list of programs, so you're not going to be able to see all the customized little options that each school offers. So I really recommend that once a school starts to look interesting, you're thinking like St. Joe's, I want to learn more about it. Google St. Joe's Philly majors and look at the majors list on the St. Joe's site because you're going to be able to see all the very specific data that St. Joe's has there and be able to find especially those niche majors that just don't come up in these standardized lists. Here, though, some schools have customized each one of their specific majors along with direct links, again, to the university website, so that can be helpful. And then we've got financial information. You can see really what the sticker price is. Note these are the same because St. Joe's is private. For public schools, you're going to see those numbers be different. The net price, which talks about how much students are actually paying to go once we start taking into account financial aid. Note that this refers to in-state tuition, so that's a real factor when you're looking at out-of-state public schools. I recommend that all families do net price calculators for the schools that they're looking at. That's accessible within the SCOIR parent account, or also every college is required to have one on their website. So you can just Google St. Joe's Philly net price calculator. It should come up, usually the first or second link. Okay. A couple other things we want to talk about admissions. One of the most popular things on Naviance were our Scattergrams. They're located right here. So this refers to the students from Hillsborough High School who've applied to St. Joe's University between 2014 and 2020, and I can change that. If I want to just look at more recent years, especially great at schools like Villanova, Lehigh, BC, Northeastern that have been getting more competitive in recent years, you can get a better view if that pool of data is a little bit more recent. The green dots represent students who've been accepted. This star right here, this is my student. So he has about a 94 and a 27 ACT, which is around 1280-ish on the SAT. You see here he is in kind of a land of green circles, which means his chances for acceptance are good. He's above our average Hillsborough applicant and but still within the middle 50% of our Hillsborough applicants, so between the 25 and 75% markers. In general, the more you move this way, the more you move this way, the easier it is to get into the school. The more you move in this direction, the less likelihood admission is. You can also look at the acceptance heat maps to see what percentage of students in each area were admitted, and that could be especially helpful for other schools, especially as you move to more selective schools. You can also sort it down by early decision, early action, and regular decision, depending upon what's available at that school. For each school, you can add them to your list. And students, when you do that from your account, it's going to pop here onto the following list. For parents, it will go onto the suggested list, and also happen for counselors. Students from each one of these schools, you can go ahead and designate whether the school is a reach, a match, or a probable. And again, you can see the scattergram right from here. That might help you to stay more organized and kind of keep your list down to a more manageable number. Sometimes I think it's very helpful to be able to see in a visual way, kind of where you're at. And it's really helpful to look at things and realize that, like, oh, things are a little bit out of control. I really don't need 7 probable schools, or, well, hey, I have too many reaches and this is a problem because I only have 1 match. So we will be using SCOIR throughout the application process. We'll move into these right columns later in the school year and as we move into next year. But just know that this is kind of going to be the place where you request recommendations, transcripts, can see what we've sent out and when we've sent out. SCOIR will do all of those things that Naviance used to do. All right, my next video is going to be about building a balanced college list.